in the 5-1 bracket, Shardless Sultai versus Belcher. Step 1 for the Belcher deck of Mike Noble is going to be the die roll.
That's important.
That's a big one.
Step 2, the opening hand.
He won it. Okay.
Looks like he's checking both those boxes.
There is a Force of Will. 2 forces, only 2 forces, 2 blue cards.
Womp womp.
Ah, scoop. Okay, next game. No.
Sometimes you can sneak in an empty through this.
That's.
But there's a Toxic Deluge in the hand. You're on the play and it's turn 1, so maybe. It's tough.
He passes the Force of Will check handily. Got 2 of them and lands. All right. It's going to be harder on Mike. We'll see what he does. Yep, just says go.
Big play.
Big play. Johnathan, land and go. Charbelcher's a nice deck. Plays Lion's Eye Diamond. At this point, if you're on the Shardless side, do you think your opponent is Storm or Belcher, or just Snap Belcher?
Well, kept on 7, right? And played Gitaxian Probe?
Yeah.
I would be amazed if a Storm pilot did this. It smells a lot like Belcher.
Could be oops all spells, something similarly doing something silly. Stormy got the Lion's Eye Diamond's on the stack.
Does oops play LED? Or at least, I think they scale up by 1, so I think that one's off.
Okay. Yeah, now we just think.
I like the announcing Storms at 1.
Yep.
Really big on that.
It's the bluff. You got to make him think you're on Storm. Force of Will pitching Shardless Agent on the Lion's Eye Diamond.
Okay. Pretty aggressive use of the Force, but he has a second one.
Yeah. I mean, is it too simple for me just to say you should just force the Goblin Charbelcher?
You want to go earlier on the chain because of empty specifically, but Lion's Eye Diamond doesn't threaten empty.
Elvish Spirit Guide makes Tinderwall in Manamorphose. But there's another Force of Will, and both players know about it.
This one's an intriguing spell to Force of Will. Worst case scenario is Manamorphose Resolves makes double red and cast 2 Rite of Flames.
Well, you can just force the second one of those, right?
You could, but then there's still just mana in the pool, and there might be an empty the Warrens.
Okay, 2 mana floating. It's red and green.
Catching spots with 0 mana in the pool is pretty important in this matchup.
It's got 2 Charbelchers, does Mike. Desperate Ritual.
Another good spot for Force of Will.
Yeah. Mike, 4 cards left in hand. I'd be okay forcing here. And he will. Force of Will pitching Brainstorm for Johnathan. Mike, 5th spell of the turn. If you can rebuild from here, oh man.
It's going to be tough.
I don't think you... I'm not sure you can rebuild from there. Not with 4
Mike
cards.
agrees.
All right, so let's go. Second land for Johnathan, passes back. Mike now will rebuild. 2 Charbelchers in his hand.
That makes things really tough.
Second one, not great. So let's go. Tarmogoyf for Johnathan. Artifact, sorcery, instant.
Creature, Tinderwall.
4/5. And Mike draws the Taiga. So Taiga into Tinderwall. There we go. That's going to be 3 mana next turn. 2 Desperate Rituals. So if he draws another mana source, Ryan, I think he has enough. So he goes to 4. Ritual, Splicing Ritual puts him to 6. Ritual puts him to 7. Belcher tap. Well, splice mechanic will get him that extra mana. He just needs 1 Spirit Guide.
Pretty significant miss for Johnathan there. Shardless Agent cascades into Baleful Strix. He would have loved to have hit him to Torok.
That would be huge. You're right. So he swings in, though. He's got Mike down to 14. Mike, 1 mana off. That's Rite of Flame. I think he has this. Has cards in hand. He can go for it this turn. It'll be all his resources. If he goes and fails, he's done.
Not a huge reason to wait. This deck is not the kind of deck that generally gets better over time.
Rite of Flame up to 2. No, Tinderwall up to 4. 4 mana. Desperate Ritual, splicing Desperate Ritual puts him up to 6. Casts Ritual goes to 7. Charbelcher, tap it.
Taiga's on the battlefield. Can't miss there.
Reveal cards on top of your deck till you reveal the land. That's not going to happen. So he'll reveal all his cards. Goblin Charbelcher will deal damage equal to the number of non-land cards revealed. There's at least 20 cards in the deck, and game 1 goes to Mike Noble.
Yeah. 1 through double Force of Will, which you don't often see.
Yeah, that's huge.
I gotta say, Johnathan going for Force on that Lion's Eye Diamond, I think that did it.
Counting it. Goblin Charbelcher wins a game.
That tracks. Can confirm.
So is the strategy then on Johnathan's side just simpler? Is it really you just, you didn't like the Force on the Lion's Eye Diamond, I understand that. So when are we pulling the trigger then? Just on the Belchers?
Sometimes on the Belchers. The problem is when they get to 4 mana, they can empty you. So you look for those windows with an empty mana pool. That's the most significant spot.
But Johnathan has Deluge in hand, so he doesn't care.
Sure. Once you have Deluge, on turn 1 though, it's very different.
Okay, you can't race it then.
If you can't cast Deluge before goblins come in for lethal, then it's a really significant problem.
Okay.
Also, just like Lion's Eye Diamond is not a meaningful spell outside of when they have Belcher. It's possible at that point in time he thought he was playing against Storm still.
Okay, that makes sense then.
Yeah, that makes the play a little more justifiable.
But Belcher wins the game 1. It's one of the important parts for this deck, is to do just that. We'll look at the player's sideboards. Starting on Johnathan's side, he certainly has dead cards in this matchup.
Yeah.
His sideboard is 3 Thoughtseize, 2 Fatal Push, 2 Surgical Extraction, a Golgari Charm, a Grafdigger's Cage, a Life from the Loam, a Maelstrom Pulse, a Master of the Wild Hunt, a Knight of Soul's Betrayal, a Sylvan Library, and a 2nd Toxic Deluge. Big
upgrades here are going to be those 3 Thoughtseize. You can reach for some of this other stuff. Golgari Charm, I think, is the next best card on the list because it insulates you against Empty the Warrens.
Right.
Surgical's not good. It can be okay, but if you have enough dead cards, you would go for it.
Yeah, it's usually not going to hit cards in his hand. Is that the concern?
Right. The Belcher player, they're just trying to empty their hand all in one turn. Sometimes you can catch them, specifically against Rite of Flame. You might have a window, but they usually just cast the cold priority and cast the next one. If you hit him with a Thoughtseize, that's when you can technically surgical them, and he will be on the play in game 2.
How about cards like Sylvan Library here? It's cheap, finds him the cards that matter.
It's going to depend on what he's boarding out. That one is really slow. He does have some other stuff that's pretty slow as well. Not in love with having like Lee of Old and Baleful Strix in this matchup.
Sure.
Most important is getting these Abrupt Decays out, though, which should be pretty easy.
All right, well, on Mike Noble's side, he's got 4 Pyroblasts, 4 Xantid Swarm, a 1-up from Goblin War Strike. That lets him instant kill with the Empty the Warrens. A Shattering Spree, a Hull Breach, an Infernal Tutor, a Pyroclasm, an Empty the Warrens, and a copy of Reverent Silence. A lot of this is for his Burning Wish sideboard. I guess my question then would be, you look at the 4-ups. Is this a Pyroblast matchup? Is this a Xantid Swarm matchup?
So when it comes to Shardless Agent, specifically because they kind of have to go to discard on the back of Shardless Agent and only have Force of Will for counter spells, that makes Xantid Swarm a little bit mofy. It should be able to come down and attack, but you're really more worried about getting Thoughtseize out of the game, especially on the draw. So I don't think you reach for Xantid Swarm. There's an argument to reach for some number of Pyroblast. Pyroblast also pretty bad against discard, though. I expect pretty light sideboarding.
Yeah, so the Xantid Swarm matchups, what are the decks you generally look toward for those?
Like the slower blue-whitish. That's where you want to be.
Stoneblade.
Yeah, when your opponent's primary removal spell is Swords to Plowshares and they're playing Force of Will, that's really where it shines. Against red-blue decks, they're more likely to be leaving Lightning Bolt in because it's always live against you. And then they have counter spells as well. They can counter the Xantid Swarm or just kill it and then have a counter. And the Xantid Swarm is a mana you have to spend to cast it. It's another card that's not adding on your combo turn.
Johnathan will be on the play here for the second game. Was not able to get there with the double Force of Will hand. These Thoughtseizes certainly will help out. And you mentioned he was missing the Hymn to Tarax that last game, which is huge.
Yeah, once the Belcher player has a turn where they try to go for it, then Hymn to Tarax gets really good.
Yeah. So we talked earlier about how the Season 2 Invitational is coming up, just one open between now and then. There are other ways, though, to qualify, and that's through the StarCityGames.com Invitational Qualifier. These are tournaments happening at local stores around the country. Each tournament gives 2 opportunities to be invited to the Invitational, the first and second place finisher, in exclusive. And in addition to that, you get $1,000 to the top 8. You get points for our SCG Opens to help you earn buys at our events. You get a top 8 pin and playmat and some of the exclusive tokens. You can find an IQ near you or get your store signed up for one at starcitygames.com/IQ. So game number 2. This one of the things, you see a shake of the head by Johnathan. When you play against Belcher, that opening 7, it's really stressful just to draw it because of how much pressure is on those cards.
And this is the game where he's on the play. He has more things he can find. You keep any Thoughtseize hand as long as it's otherwise reasonable at all. This gets a lot worse on the draw.
So when you have, if you look at a hand in this matchup with Shardless Sultai, there's no Thoughtseize, no Force of Will.
Ship it.
Doesn't even, I don't even have to go any farther?
No. It's a little bit different against decks like Storm. You can't bank on him to Turok even being good. The Belcher deck is very much trying to do something big on turn 1.
That put them on mulliganing to 7 cards. I agree, though. They're really important. If you had a hand of Deathrite Shaman on the play, him to Turok, maybe you can keep that. I mean, it's still not great.
Yeah, I think that's at best to keep on 6.
Okay.
Hard to keep that one on 7. You can keep hands that are like reasonable with Ponder or Brainstorm. This deck only plays Brainstorm, no Ponder.
No Thoughtseize first turn. Mike's going to go for some action here. Land Grant. Gets Taiga and the Lotus Petal. So his hand is Pyroblast, Elvish Spirit Guide, Tinderwall, Elvish Spirit Guide, Burning Wish, and Goblin Charbelcher.
This hand looks like I can set up Belcher with Pyroblast backup on the turn. Can't go off just yet, but it can build back up to that.
Yeah, he has 5 mana here, so you're right. He can make Belcher with red up, and then with that Taiga in play, building up toward it. That I like that a lot. So see Tinderwall cast. Now to make that play, he has to use both Spirit Guides right now. I guess that's fine.
And the Tinderwall.
Well, that's what we signed up for.
Yeah. You don't get a ton of alternative lines of play with the Belcher
1, 2,
deck.
3, 4. Goblin Charbelcher on turn 1. Can Johnathan answer? He
And
cannot.
if he doesn't have to spend the Pyroblast, it's just one more mana source to go for it.
Yeah, 1 more mana source will win him the game. Passes. Johnathan draws, plays Tarmogoyf. Looking for, I guess there's a Maelstrom Pulse, one of in the deck.
Theoretically, that could be in the deck. It does answer Goblins, so it's fine.
He doesn't have many answers to a resolved Belcher. Mike just needs to draw 1 mana. Draws a card, it's face down.
It's a little tension if he draws Desperate Ritual, because then you're kind of playing into Force for the first time because you no longer have Pyroblast up.
Well, so if he draws Desperate Ritual, he doesn't have to go for it just yet, right?
Yeah,
he can
exactly.
wait.
Yeah, that's why it's a tense spot.
Mike goes to 17, draws another card, says go. Swing for 6, Mike's down to 11. Passes. Does Mike hit the mana this time? Up to 5 cards. Says go. Okay, Jonathan's just holding on. He wastelands the Taiga. That might just do it. Hit for 3 more. Mike down, 6 more. Mike down to 5. Chrome Mox. There's a mana source. Is it enough? Is there another, maybe he had the Desperate Ritual and didn't want to commit.
That could be.
And he misses. He can't do it.
Ooh, at least 1 land grant in the hand. So he does have some blanks from that spot. There's only 1 land in the deck.
Belcher is a deck with plenty of blanks in it. And that one, it's a heartbreaker there for Mike. He's very favored from that spot.
Yeah.
So with Johnathan, with very few ways. We mentioned the 1 sideboard Maelstrom Pulse is his only way to interact with that onboard Belcher. Mike had 4 turns to hit the 2nd mana source and could not.
Yeah, and Johnathan had the mulligan to 4, but there we just kind of saw the fail rate of the Belcher deck. Very keepable hand for Mike Noble.
His opening hand had 5 mana in it, 6 if you double count the land. it's a keep.
Had a probe too, or not a probe. Sorry, it was land grab. That's why we saw his hand.
Yeah, he had the Pyroblast.
Yeah, the Pyroblast was the nice piece there.
Yeah, Burning Wish in his hand, never able to convert that one. Nothing he really would want to convert it into.
Right. And that is one thing. Sometimes when you're playing a more fair deck and you have a card in your hand that serves as a functional mulligan, you know, you have your Stoneforge Mystic and you've drawn all your equipments, for example. You look at mulliganing that hand, Belcher can't really afford to do that.
Well, there is another option, and I don't know if Mike's supposed to play this. I guess if he makes the Belcher on turn 2, then he has enough mana, because he gets to untap the Taiga, so he has one. There's the additional mana. It's probably not a play you can make, because if your opponent draws Thoughtseize, you just really look like a fool for not making the turn 1 Belcher. I don't think he's supposed to make that play. I'd be surprised.
Right.
Especially because you allow Johnathan to do things like brainstorm into the Thoughtseize. That's too much.
Yep. And though we are going to game 3 where Mike Noble will be on the play with Belcher, and that makes Johnathan, he's in a position where he has to be even more selective with his opening hands. And you saw him mulligan a lot in game 2.
Yeah, he got gifted that one back. I mean, the only cards he played that game were 2 Tarmogoyfs.
Yep.
That usually will not race a Belcher draw.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot slower than Belcher. Yeah, so he's really at force of will or bust on the draw here. If Noble's able to present a keepable 7, you just can't keep a 7 without force if Noble says he's going to keep.
So we're trying again. On my side, do you want any re-sideboarding? So it's something like Xantid Swarm when you're on the play. Does that change it for you? I do, because he's now you're making him rely on Force of Wills.
I still think that Pyroblast is the way to go in matchups like this.
I don't suppose you can ever go for both. That's just you.
It's a lot of sideboarding for a deck like this.
Yeah.
And it's still the matter where if you lead on Xantid Swarm, nice, you're insulated against Force of Will on the next turn, but you're still in a lot of trouble. Then Jonathan's in a position where if he has Thoughtseize, he just gets to Thoughtseize you. You have to spend a mana source, which frequently is a card from the Belcher deck, to cast the Swarm. Pretty big cost to have that card. You don't get a ton of options for other cards to put in the Belcher sideboard, though.
Yeah. So they'll be going over to our second game here. You can catch up on all the news here at the SCG Tour on our Star City Games newsletter. This is your source for Magic the Gathering news. You can get highlights from the week's best articles. You can find out where the next stop on the SCG Tour is and find an IQ near you and all more. The best part is that it's free, so you can get this in your mailbox every week just by signing up. StarCityGames.com/newsletter. Some talk this week mentioned about that Humans deck. Collins winning the tournament with it last weekend and playing it again this weekend in Legacy.
Really liked Collins' article title. It's like, I won the Modern Open with Humans. I did not lose a match. Everything's right there. Didn't play for the perfect 15-0 though.
No, he went 13-0 and then I believe scoop draw.
Yeah, approximately that. Yeah, a draw and a scoop.
Can you run that? If you scooped, can you run the undefeated? Can you tell us? Is that fair?
I think that's totally fine.
Mike starts, he's on the play, looks at his hand. He's got the Taiga in it. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
If you have no land grants, it's fine.
We have the Taiga and the land grant. He's going to mulligan. And so is Johnathan. The more mulligans each side takes, it's got to be good for Sultai, I would think.
On average, I would agree.
We talked earlier about how combo decks, over the years, they tend to not get any better. Goblin Charboucher feels like it falls in that camp.
No. Every card that is good in this deck, they tend to ban in Modern and try to stop from printing in the first place.
What is the newest card in his deck? You're not looking. You need to look at the sideboard.
Poetic Ritual, is that it?
No, they don't play. That's Desperate Ritual. They don't. Oh, no, they play Pyretic.
We got to play both.
Okay, so we're like M12, right? It's been about 4 years, 5 years since they've changed a single card in the deck.
Yep, pretty sure that's the one.
Yep, that's the newest one, Pyretic Ritual. No need to update it when the deck's perfect.
It's really hard for a card to be worth an include in a deck like this.
M11, not even 12. My mistake. That means this was, what, 2010 that it was printed? Because they did the thing that cars do where they always are, it's next year's model.
You see, cars and cards are so similar words.
You'd be like M11. That must have been the summer of 2010. You were playing with next year's cards. So we are 7 years since Belcher has gotten a single new card to their deck.
It's future shifted. Next year's cards.
Next year's core set cards today.
It's exciting.
Can't wait.
The immediate future of Magic.
I'm waiting until those Vessel of Volatilities make it into the deck.
Johnathan wearing his heart on his sleeve here. I'm thinking he has a Thoughtseize no force.
I don't think he has a force of will. Either that or he got some real good Hollywooding happening. Now he's going to put it back in.
Could have been force of will and like blue card 4 lands or something. But yeah, not a good one.
So he'll take a second mulligan. Looks like Mike has kept on 6. See, it's the law of averages, Ryan. You got 2 force of wills in the first game, so that means you don't get to have them in your openers from now.
That tracks.
That is how math works.
Yeah, he used them all.
It's kept on 5. You can keep force blue card on a 5-card hand. The question is, are you going to do anything else? You'd like to have some lands, force and blue card, and that's most of your hand.
Yeah, it gets to a point where you can't mulligan to force and more things. You just don't have enough cards in your hand.
I think my favorite game I've had, I remember keeping a no-land 7 against Belcher. It's just 3 forces, 3 blue cards, and like a lot more ponders. Like, yeah, I bet they can't beat this one.
This is the matchup where that plays.
Land Grant for Mike, getting Taiga. So we see here, Burning Wish, Manamorphose, Lion's Eye Diamond, Tinderwall, Empty the Warrens.
All right, so we can Tinderwall. Can't do much beyond Tinderwalling, actually. You might have to Tinderwall and pass, because you could Tinderwall, cast Burning Wish, crack LED in response, but you can't cast Empty off of that. You have to wait until next turn. You could try to Manamorphose into something a little better. And most of the deck is mana sources. I'm not into that,
So once you get the Tinderwall into play, the thing is what I don't want to make, I'd rather go off that second turn. You're only opening yourself up to Thoughtseize here, and I'm not that worried about Thoughtseize, but no, he's going to do stuff. He's going for this.
You're also opening yourself up to Wasteland.
All right. Sign me up. Let's just play all our cards. Manamorphose makes a red and a green. Storm is at 3.
This is what he came to do.
Yeah. If he draws a mana source here, well, it doesn't even do anything.
Mana source lets him Burning Wish empty.
Okay, Pyretic Ritual. Spell 4 up to 3 red. So yes, now he can Burning Wish empty. I mean, if the Burning Wish gets countered, that sure stinks.
Yep. That's, again, what he came here to do. Doesn't get better if you wait.
No, wait. So he's up to... I don't know, this is... We'll let it play out. Is there a force blue card in Johnathan's hand? So, down to 1 red floating. He's going to cast Burning Wish. With it on the stack, he cracks LED to make red mana. And now if it gets Force of Will, boy, that sure stinks. Ah, dang, all my cards.
Well,
right in the Force of Wills turns out to be a 2 for 6.
Your turn.
Baleful Strix draws a card. gonna have to rebuild for a while. Strict swings in. We'll see if Deathrite Shaman added. Jonathan's was able to put together 4's blue card and a clock.
Yep, this is a fast clock. Couple creatures anyway. But being the Brainstorm deck means that Orc can draw this a little bit. He'll have plenty of windows to meaningfully convert a Thoughtseize or a Hymn to Turok from here. Going for a Shardless Agent. If he finds a Hymn here, that should close the game. Even Thoughtseize would be really good against a lot of the potential hands here.
So Mike has just continues to attempt to rebuild. We always get a lot of close calls. When we get Belcher on camera, I thought we don't see it win very much. I thought we were gonna see it today.
To be entirely honest, if Belcher was the kind of deck that won a lot, it would probably have to be banned.
I mean, yes.
I'm just saying.
Yes, it would. If this deck was reliable, it would be terrifying.
Yeah, he's up to something here.
Okay.
His Ritual into Burning Wish. Maybe a Pyroclasm. Buy him some time to, yep, there's Pyroclasm. So we can cast this and then be back to 0 cards. And he does.
I think the one time it was the St. Louis Open, we had a Belcher deck make it all the way to the finals of the Legacy Open. Its sideboard, the player's sideboard, I remember, was 15 islands.
And now Or cascades into Thoughtseize now that Noble's empty-handed.
Don't cast that one. He'll Red Blast away the agent.
It's a little game of attrition.
So how does Mike build a board, though? You know, his one land in the deck's already in play. He's just like draws running Tinder Walls. Is that what he's really hoping for? I mean that in all honestness, too.
Yeah, all he can do is just peel mana sources off the top, and Tinderwall would have been a lot better than these ones, and you see he got Hymn to Turok there.
He had Chrome Mox plus Desperate Ritual. See, if he just jammed the Chrome Mox immediately, it would have been some insurance. Plays Lion's Eye Diamond. That could matter down the road. Could activate a Goblin Charbelcher.
Yep. Can't cast anything, which is why you don't see Or reaching to hardcast Force of Will.
How much of a concern is it? Eventually, if we get far enough in the deck, Charbelcher won't win anymore. That's not real, is it?
I don't think it is. Or has to win before we get to that point.
Hymn to Turok gets 2 more cards. Elvish Spirit Guide and Desperate Ritual were the cards. I don't think he can do anything in response.
Nope.
Just loses the cards. And yeah, I believe he's counting. Discards them both. Johnathan.
Exiled Elvish Spirit Guide. Who knows why?
Leovold, 6-turn clock for Johnathan. 1.
Turns off Manamorphose as a redraw.
And with Force plus blue card left in Jonathan's hand, that should reasonably cover all of Mike's outs.
He also just has 100 lambs, so you can just, it's a 5-mana counterspell too.
So just Force.
Yep.
You don't care about the blue card. Belcher has never won a trophy on the SCG Tour. It's the second the farthest it's ever made. I think he's won a Classic. It hasn't won the Open.
I believe that. I can't confirm it, but I believe it.
Like I said, made it all the way to finals back in 2012 in St. Louis. The exact, the exact same deck. CR established since 2010, it hasn't changed, so that would put it still in the range of being the same 60 cards.
At the end of game 1, did Mike Noble control any permanents?
He had a Goblin Charbelcher.
Oh yeah. So I still don't have a player losing with no permanents on the battlefield.
This was one of your better chances, actually. This was one of your Goblin. If Mike loses a game, frequently he'll have no permanents.
Yeah.
What it would have helped is if his opponent was a Delver deck, it would have been almost certain that that's how he would lose. But the problem is that Johnathan doesn't play a Wasteland for you.
Yep.
Sometimes you see Shardless play 2 Wastelands.
Yeah, we saw Wasteland in R2 here.
Oh, yeah, it does have the 2. Okay. It's going to surgical some cards out of Mike's deck.
Not even waiting for the draw step. No respect.
He's just going to... Oh, it gets both empties. The other one was in Mike's hand. He just knew it. There's a third one still in Mike's deck, which he'll get. But he can't get the one out of the sideboard.
Yeah. Not a very meaningful surgical, and really these players are just kind of going through the motions. Remember, you used to be able to wish for cards that were exiled, but there was a rules change several years ago now where you can only wish for cards in your sideboard.
Okay, so he can't go get these back.
Right.
Now, I do think he has an empty in his sideboard, so it doesn't play here. But if he needs one, he can still get it. Back to work. Johnathan will go. That 6-turn clock ticking away. He's got a 3/3 for it. Ooh, I like it. He's counting up to 6 with his lands. I'm not. Is he gonna?
His deck actually has a lot of mana sources. I thought he might be checking to see how many fetchable lands he still had, but he actually just plays a full 4 Underground Sea and a couple bayous, a forest and a swamp, a tropical island. He has plenty.
Gonna drop that Azure Mage and start going to work.
Checking to see, I think, if he can Shardless Agent and Hardcast Force of Will on the same turn.
I like how he separated his lands. See, he just has the 5 in a pile set up to the top.
Yep, they're ready to go.
Just in case. Mike passes back over to Johnathan. Thoughtseize. He'll take another card. Probe or Manamorphose.
These cards are both very bad against Leovold, but Gitaxian Probe is worse.
Yep. Not like Belcher will ever remove the Leovold.
Yeah, the text box on Gitaxian Probe when your opponent controls Leovold is look at your opponent's hand, they draw a card.
You lose 2 life.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, Belcher can't hardcast it.
Yeah, there's you could Manamorphose into it.
Now, they do draw the card before you see their hand, so you still get perfect information. So it's not all bad.
I like that.
It's not all bad.
All right, yeah. All right, turn another Thoughtseize from Johnathan. Rite of Flame. Always gonna take. Can't have rituals. He'll take the Rite of Flame. Hit number 4. Mike's down to 6. 2 to go. Yeah, quick discussion here between the players.
Going through graveyards a lot, not sure what about. I think they're confirming life totals with life loss after that Thoughtseize, Force of Wills, fetch lands. These things get mixed up a good amount in Legacy.
Looks like there's a discrepancy. The players have agreed, though, on 11 and 6. We'll adjust the life totals. 2 hits to go. Here's the first. 1 more draw step for Mike. Johnathan can make his way all up to 9 mana.
Off 10, if Johnathan didn't have that Leovold, Noble could Gitaxian Probe into Hidetsugo's second right with Lion's Eye Diamond mana. Another problem being that card's not in his deck.
Shardless Agent from Johnathan is going to cascade into Ancestral Vision. He'll target himself.
That's a good target.
Could probably target the other guy.
And then Noble would draw 1 card.
Yeah. All right, Mike's going to go for it. Rite of Flame.
Big play. This is the turn.
How many of them are in the yard? Oh, wow. 1. So it's going to make 3. 3 red. Probe. Takes 2. Goes to 1. Johnathan. Oh, Mike targets himself.
That's smart.
Targets himself again because he's the big match. So it's going to be Johnathan Orr with Shardless Sultai. Wins both sideboarded games on mulls to 5.